Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Altaley Mining live corporate webinar. This is Paul Lamputis from RBMG. Altaley Mining trades on the TSXV under symbol ATLY, on the OTCQX under symbol ATLYF, and on the Frankfurt Exchange under symbol TSGA. Joining us today is Ralph Shearing, President and CEO, who will go through Altaley's October presentation. At the end of the presentation, we will open it up for questions for management to address. If you are interested in asking a question and are logged into Zoom, you can submit your questions to us directly in the Q&A or chat. Please note the presentation is being recorded today, Tuesday, October 5th, and will soon be made available on the company's website at altaleymining.com. Today's call may contain forward-looking statements that are subject to risks and uncertainties and may cause actual results, performance, or developments to differ materially from those contained in the statements and are not guarantees of future performance of the company. No assurance can be given that any of the events anticipated by the forward-looking statements will occur, or if they do occur, what benefits the company will obtain from them. Also, some risks and uncertainties may be out of the control of the company. Altaley's full disclaimer is available on slide 2 of this presentation. Lastly, RBMG is not a registered investment advisor or broker-dealer. For more information, please visit us at rbmilestone.com. It is now our pleasure to introduce to you Ralph Shearing. Ralph.
Thank you, Paul, and hello, everybody. Ralph Shearing, President CEO of Altaley Mining. So here to show you a fairly exciting story. Altaley Mining, we're building Mexico's next mid-tier metals producer. We have one project in production, Campomorato, on the right-hand side of the slide. And over on the left-hand side, we're building the Tarawetto Mine, a gold mine under construction. Paul has outlined our forward-looking statements. I'll skip that at this point in time. Here shows our location of our project. So we're in Mexico. We have the Tarawetto Project, which is our gold project under construction up in northwestern corner of Durango, and Campomorato down in Guerrero. So we are fully financed for growth, low cost expansion abilities. We're optimizing mine plans in Campomorato right now. Near-term resource growth potential on both our projects, where we believe we can expand the size of the mines in the near future, and both of their projects are district scale properties. So at Tarawetto and at Campomorato, we own these projects 100%. Tarawetto, we're constructing a 1,000 ton a day underground mining operation. We're approximately 80% complete. We expect to be up and running at half capacity near the end of this year. Average gold payable will be around 25,000 ounces on an annual basis, 400,000 ounces of silver. If you add the base metals to that on a gold equivalent basis, we should be in the neighborhood of 42,000 ounces of gold equivalent resources on an annual basis. All-in sustaining costs, $808 per gold equivalent ounce. This will be a low cost producer. And we currently have around 9 years of mine life with our reserves. And with M&I resources, we could extend that potentially up to 20 years. Excellent exploration potential to double or triple the mine life and allow mine throughput expansions in the near term. Campomorato, it's the 6th largest zinc producer currently in Mexico. It's an underground mining operation operating around 2,000 tons per day. In the first half of 2021, we've produced just over 21 million pounds of payable zinc. So we're on track to produce 43 million pounds of zinc this year, should our production maintain as it has in the first half of the year. Q2 21 all-in sustaining costs, so these are project costs, were 48 cents per pound of zinc. Zinc is currently trading in the $1.30, 35 range. So we're making very good money these days. All-in sustaining costs, again in Q2 2021, were 70 cents per pound of zinc produced. So we have a lot of room to absorb a downward pressure on zinc if we can maintain this cost structure moving forward. We currently have 7 years in our mine plan. There's 20 years in M&I resources ahead of us. We believe we can increase resources and reserves and get a much longer mine plan. Moving forward. So if you look at our highlights, we have stable and growing cash flow at Campomorato. In the first half of this year, we were producing around 2.1 million in monthly EBITDA. We have a pathway to expand production from 2,000 to 3,000 tons per day. We have a flotation circuit that was 80% complete, being constructed by the former owners when we purchased the mine. We could bring that online with a little bit of work. And we're also exploring process improvements to get a much larger gold and silver recovery, up to 400% increases in gold recovery, 200% increases in silver recoveries have gone through first phase testing successfully. So we hope we can take this through second phase testing. The pathway to increase resources and reserves with exploration could justify a double of this mine size on more of a long-term basis, 5 years, more or less moving forward. This would require exploration success. At Tarawetto, we recently finalized a $25 million funding. Construction is 80% complete. Initial production is projected to occur near the end of 2021. And once we're in production, 69, just under 70% of our revenue should be from gold, 12% from silver, 19% from base metals. This is really a gold mine in the making. So again, pathway to increase resources and reserves could double or triple the size of this operation with exploration success, which will come easy. I'll show you why in a few more slides. So once we get Tarawetto in production, we expect to be re-rated as a high growth precious metal producers. Tarawetto will double our monthly sales and EBITDA. Our precious metals should comprise about 60% of our net revenues by mid-2022. Once Tarawetto comes on stream. And we're currently trading about 1.4 times enterprise value over EBITDA. That's 88% below other Mexican metal producers. We have recently strengthened our management team and have a well-rounded group of people guiding this company forward. Here is the management team. So I'm a professional geologist. I spent most of my years in mineral exploration and development. I have over 35 years in mineral exploration and over 30 years of public company management experience in Canada. David Rhodes is our chairman. David is the managing director of Endeavour Financial out of the UK. Endeavour Financial has raised billions of dollars for the mining industry, various companies. And we have signed up Endeavour as an advisor to our company. Mark Bailey has got a long track record of explorations and development mining success in Mexico. Mark was the founder and one of the principals behind Mine Finders. They had a very good, strong career in mining in Mexico. Tom Kelly recently joined our company as a director, independent director. He has over 40 years of underground mining experience, so he fits right into our company very well and is giving us lots of good advice. Natasha Kernan is a lawyer, recently joined us. Her claim to fame, and she was ranked the top 40 under, one of the top 40 under 40 up-and-coming lawyers in New York. She now resides in Vancouver and is helping us out a lot. Roberto Guzman, independent director, finance guy. He's primarily involved in real estate within Mexico and entered into our company in 2015, has now become our most senior shareholder. He reports as a control person and is a director of the company. Ruben Alvidrez is a member of a prominent mining family in Mexico. His brother is the CEO of Fresnillo, and his father, now retired, was one of the senior members of Peñoles. Omar Garcia, Chief Financial Officer, 20 years of experience in mining and public companies, resides in Canada, a dual Mexican-Canadian citizen. And finally, Armando Alexandri has over 40 years of experience, mostly in Mexico, building mines, operating mines, and he has joined us as our Chief Operating Officer. There's over 250 years of combined experience in our board of directors and management. Moving on, I'll tell a little bit about Tarawetto right now. So Tarawetto is going to be one of the 4 top highest grade producers in Mexico once it gets into production later this year. Our reserves, we have 3.2 million tons of reserves at the grade of 3.4 grams per ton gold, 41 silver, and base metals. M&I resources are 6.1 million tons. That includes the reserves, but the reserves give us over a 10-year mine life. The M&I resources gives us over a 20-year mine life if we can convert the M&I resources into reserves, which we believe we can do with a little more drilling. We'll be producing around 42,000 ounces of gold equivalent, including all metals. That's 25,000 ounces of payable gold. All-in sustaining cost, a low cost of $808 per gold equivalent ounce is what we're estimating, and we'll be starting 500 tons per day near the end of this year, ramping up to 1,000 tons per day Q1 into Q2 of next year at Tarawetto. This is a bit of a production profile, all sustaining guidance. So you can see at Tarawetto, this is the overall company, just under 70% of our revenue will be from gold, combining both projects. Silver 12%, zinc 13%, and lead 6%. I'm sorry, this is just Tarawetto. So 70% of the production at Tarawetto will be gold, 12% silver, 13% zinc. Our all-in sustaining cost maintains in the 800 up to high 900s here. That is a function of lower reserves being mined. However, with exploration, we believe we'll be continuing to have a production profile in years 28, 29, 30 and beyond up in these levels at 1,000 tons per day. That's by bringing in new resources and reserves. Next slide. Just a few photos of the Tarawetto project to show our construction progress. This up here is a couple months ago. This is now inside the mill recently. Several weeks ago, here we're putting the mill together, ball mill being installed. This is the water line starting to be installed, water containers, tanks up in here, obviously camp, etc. here. So it just gives you an idea of the progress we're making on site, which has been very good. Now I'll talk a little bit about the exploration potential and give you an idea of what we have at Tarawetto. So Tarawetto is a mineralized district. We call it a district scale project. At this point in time, the district that we know of is about 12 kilometers long by 8 kilometers wide. All our concessions are outlined in blue. We have this internal block of concessions here, and then surrounding that, we have outside concessions. Our only competitor is Fresnillo. Fresnillo holds this sliver of ground around our internal block. This area in here represents an erosional window through some overlying younger rocks that exposes the productive horizons. Our main structure that we have drilled, and it's really the only structure that we have explored and developed extensively with drilling, starts from Cinco de Mayo up to 14 to Perdido, goes over the other side of the hill. We weren't able to drill it in this area because there's too much overlying cover. It's too deep to drill from surface. But we picked the zone up again here at the Santiago zone, and it goes all the way down into the river. So we can trace this major structure over 3.4 kilometers from the river to the Cinco de Mayo area. I believe that it will continue underneath this younger rock here to the south. There's high level alteration here, which suggests these structures are at depth below the surface here. From here up to our most northerly vein, we have a vein up in here. That's over 7.5 kilometers. It gives you an idea of the potential strike length of these structures that we can continue to explore and develop into the future. We have drilled 6 holes on this Texcalama structure, and we have hit similar mineralization as we have along our major drill structure. All of these yellow lines represent vein structures that have yet to be drilled. We know they're there on surface, and we intend to continue to follow these up with drilling in the future to bring in new resources and reserves. However, we still have lots of room on our major structure. Next slide I'll show you is a longitudinal section through this area to show you what the ore bodies look like and show you the potential that still remains on that structure. So this is what it looks like. So Cinco de Mayo, if this outline of blue around here is a reserve, where it's not outlined, it is a resource. You can see many ore bodies throughout. These are all within our mine plan. This area in here, we could not drill from surface. It was too deep to effectively drill here from surface. However, our underground development has drifted in about 150 meters to this area past the last known drill hole, and it's in mineralization all the way. I believe once we tunnel right through to the other side, which we will do, I believe we will then be able to drill this, and we'll be able to bring at least another third to increase our resource and reserves in this area in here. These ore bodies are likely to continue underneath this capping area and hook up to the Santiago zone. All of our zones are open to depth. We have not found the limits to the mineralization, so we'll continue to drill from underground to make it less expensive, and we'll fill in areas to bring the M&I resources into reserve category, and we'll test below to see how deep we can take these ore bodies to. And again, I believe this zone will continue to the south, at least another 2 to 3 kilometers to the river. So lots of exploration potential. That's why I believe we can once we can get drills turning again, we could probably double or triple the size of this mine over the next 2 to 5 years, once the reserves are categorized. Moving on, we'll talk a little bit about Campomorato, show you what we're doing there. So this is an aerial view of the Campomorato mine. This is the mill here. This is a tailings facility that is full and no longer being used. However, there is a lot of metal still contained in this tailings, and we hope to reprocess those and get a lot of that metal out of it. I'll show you how we expect to do that a few slides from now. This is a 12,000 hectare property in state of Guerrero, and it's, as we mentioned before, the 6th largest zinc producer in Mexico at this point in time. So there's at least 7 zones that we know of in this volcanogenic massive sulfide deposit. We're processing the neighborhood of 2,200 tons per day on average. We declared commercial production in May of 2018. As I mentioned before, we produced 21 million pounds of zinc in the first half of this year, on track to produce 43 million pounds of zinc by the end of this year if we can maintain our production at current levels. Measured and indicated resources are 16.6 million tons at 1.7 grams per ton gold, 123 silver. You can see 0.8 copper, 0.9 lead, and 4% zinc. So this, at this point in time, this is a base metal mine, but these precious metal grades are quite high for this style of a deposit, volcanogenic massive sulfide deposit. The unfortunate part of this is the gold is refractory. We're only recovering about 20% of the gold at this point in time, and we're recovering 40 to 50% of the silver at this point in time. But we have a pathway to increase that, and we're working through the testing on that now. This M&I resource is a 20+ year mine life. We have C1 cash or all-in sustaining costs for Q2 of 77 cents per pound, and all-in project costs, C1 costs, are 48 cents per pound of zinc. Average monthly EBITDA about just over $2 million per month. Few photos of the project. So this is a tailings expansion that we have just completed. This is the crushing section, flotation cells. This yellow flotation circuit here is the one I mentioned earlier that is available to expand production at the project. This is was 80% complete when they shut down the mine for the previous owners. So when we purchased the mine, we got the benefit of all of that equipment. So that is a pathway that we could bring online with a small amount of capital and be able to produce at 3,000 tons per day. Of course, that would increase our underground mine haulage, equipment underground, etc. So we're intending to cost that out and see whether it makes sense to bring that online. However, we may have a better way to proceed based on the metallurgical testing that is underway right now. This is a production growth that we've had over the last little while at Campomorato. So over the past year, we've steadily increased our revenues. Obviously, the price of metals have helped. We've been had very strong metal prices over the last couple of quarters, and we've been able to bring up our revenues to $18 million in Q2 2021. The production by tons has increased. We're sort of tapering off at this point and getting to the sort of a flat line area up in this area up in here for our production on tons processed. The same thing for concentrate produced, steadily increases, but we're now sort of flatlining off in these areas now at the 2,000 tons per day moving forward. So where can we take Campomorato? Our first potential expansion is that flotation circuit I showed you. It's 80% complete. We could likely bring that online from cash flows. The capital cost to bring that online could be funded from current cash flows. So we intend to update the engineering. This is planned for Q3, Q4. See what that's going to cost to bring online. However, as I mentioned, there could be a better way. So at Campomorato, we're going through an extensive test program to improve both base metal recoveries and precious metal recoveries. We've brought on a pilot plant that's currently operating to test recoveries of microfine grinding of ore to increase recoveries. And our traditional flotation cells we have at Campomorato don't do a good job at microfine grind. There's just not enough energy in them to strip a slime off the particle to allow it to attach to the reagents. So these pneumatic flotation cells are designed to work under a stronger energy and strip that coating off and allow the particle to attach to the reagents a lot better, and they get better recoveries from these type of flotation systems. So we have one plant on site. We're bringing another competitor to this Imaflot plant on site. The Jameson cell will be on site within a month or so. And we'll continue to work through this over the next couple of months to determine if we can, number one, increase the base metal recoveries. Initial indications coming out of this pilot plant that's working is that we have some success. It's not fully complete yet, but we're working through it. The second thing we'll do with these plants is to attempt to produce a pyrite concentrate, which would be gold rich because a lot of the gold is tied up within the pyrite. The deposit at Campomorato is around 30 to 35% iron, which is mostly pyrites. So if we can concentrate a pyrite, we could probably sell that pyrite concentrate as a gold-rich pyrite concentrate. And if we can't, then we would be reducing the quantity or the mass balance or the quantity of the tailings in order to push it through this leach ox process or its competitor, the Albion process. And both of these processes have gone through first phase testing successfully. And these processes are really a forced oxidation of the tailings and then a leaching of the precious metals after the oxidation of the tailings. So the leach ox process was tested by the previous owners, and it increased gold recoveries up to 65% from one of the ore bodies they were mining at the time. That's a 400% increase to what we were getting a month ago. It increased silver recoveries up to 81%. So it's a 200% increase to our current silver recoveries. That was from one of the ore bodies they were mining. They did the same test on a separate ore body, which is the most distal ore body, the most refractory, in other words, the worst metallurgy. And they were able to increase gold recoveries up to 45% and silver recoveries up to 65%. So technology works, and we want to take it through second phase testing, which would allow us to cost out the technology, the implementation of the technology into the mine, and we would have a way of increasing our precious metal recoveries. With success here, that opens up the possibility of reprocessing the existing tailings facility. And this photo here just shows us sampling that tailings facility to back up the knowledge of the content of the metal in that tailings disposal facility. We have daily production reports from all of the historic production, And we've calculated out about 280,000 ounces of gold equivalent with just gold and silver. There's also base metals that could be recovered there. But that's based, this isn't 43-101 compliant. This is simply taking historic data from production, the grade of the tailings, the amount of the tailings being deposited, and we calculate out this amount. So if we're successful with this forced oxidation leaching, or even the pneumatic flotation, we have a pathway to reprocess that tailings facility. That would simply mean a regrind to microfine grind levels and recovering through the pneumatic flotation. That could really increase our revenue and really help out the project on a long-term basis. So additionally, we have near-term growth potential. We have a large anomalies that have been identified with the previous owners. They're drill ready. We just need to get in here and get ourselves healthy enough to have a budget to drill. And we expect we can bring in new resources and reserves, potentially allowing a double size of the mine over a more of a long-term basis. Obviously, it would require exploration success, but we believe that will come easy. Moving on, here's why we believe the exploration could be very successful at Campomorato. This is a long section showing the current ore bodies. This is G9 Southwest Zone, where the majority of the drilling has occurred. Majority of the mining has occurred. This ore body, the El Largo in brown, is where most of our production has been coming out of for the last 2 years. We're currently dewatering this area to get back down here. There's another year's worth of ore that has not been mined. We intend to start mining that there fairly soon. We have another 1 year of ore available in El Largo. And after that, we'll be moving to this Naranjo South, Naranjo North, and eventually working our ways out to the El Rey and Reforma. However, there's a lot of very good looking anomalies that were developed by the previous owners with borehole geophysics. So this representation up here shows the location of these. This red area through here is the El Largo. That's this zone here. So underneath there's very strong geophysical anomalies that need to be drilled. So this guy here would be under here, is down in this area and here. And in fact, the previous owners that drilled a few drill holes into these areas, testing, and have intersected thick sections of good grade massive sulfide zones. So those need to be followed up and drilled out. We believe we can develop new ore bodies below the existing ones and have access from the current underground mine workings in order to increase our resources and reserves. If we move on to the next stage on a property scale basis, this is an outline of the project as we know it now. All of the ore bodies I just showed you are within this blue ellipse. All of these other red and yellow ellipses are geophysical and or geochemical anomalies that were developed by the previous owners with very high level sophisticated geophysics. These are drill ready. We just need to locate them, set up a drill and test them. And any one of these could bring in new massive sulfide ore bodies to feed the mill in the future. So as you can see, both our projects have excellent exploration potential where we believe we can grow the size of the mines with exploration success. So we look at our market profile. We're currently trading in the 38-cent range. We've had a high of 80 cents and a low of 15 cents in the last year. 154 million shares issued with options and warrants. We're fully diluted at 333 million shares. Market capitalization is about 76 million. Cash on hand is around 9 million. Loan debt, 38 million, primarily to Trafigura, to Nearstar, and to the Ascendo Banco. That would give us an enterprise value of around just over $100 million. Our chart over the last little while, we've had a little bit of a downward trend in the poor market, as well as we've had some difficulty with the Ascendo Banco, which I'm sure we'll have questions on after the presentation. I can explain that in more detail. So we're moving on. Our company follows very strong ESG protocols. So environment, we're actively working to try to reduce our carbon footprint. We're investigating solar panel power to supplement Campomorato as well as Tarawetto. At Tarawetto, we're planning to generate power with natural gas. We'll start off with diesel, but we'll convert to natural gas as soon as the permitting is in place and we're able to do so. Permitting for natural gas. We're fully permitted for the diesel power generation at Tarawetto. On a social basis, we've always paid very close attention to keeping our social license intact and helping out the local residents in our communities nearby our mines. So for example, in Tarawetto, when we were working through the exploration phase, we built the first school there, we built a medical clinic for the local population, we brought in a doctor, we hired a teacher. We had to let that go when we ran out of money in the exploration side of things, but we'll be bringing that back in as we ramp up the project into production. We've improved water supply, sanitation to the local people that are in and around the mine. So we've always paid close attention. At Campomorato, we have a training program to hire, we try to hire as much as possible locally and have a training program to train people to become miners at the mine and pay special attention to the communities. We buy as much as possible locally in order to support the local community of Arcelia at Campomorato. And on the corporate governance side, we have strong corporate governance practice, all of which can be seen on our website. And if anyone needs to follow up there, they can go to our website to see all of our governance protocols. So just to sum things up, Altaley is Mexico's next mid-tier diversified metal producer. We have growing and stable cash flow. We're an emerging multi-mine producer by bringing Tarawetto on stream near the end of this year. Fully funded for growth. We've had a little hiccup on our funding from the Hacienda Banco, but I'll explain how that will be taken care of. We have a large resource base at both our projects with ability to expand that resource base with exploration upside, proven management and board, and a potential re-rating opportunity to a precious metal producer once we get Tarawetto back up and running. So that, I believe, is my presentation. I hope that gives you a good outline of our company and our projects, and I open up the floor for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph. If you are interested in asking a question and are logged into Zoom, please again submit your questions to us directly, which you have been doing. So we thank you for that. But prior to start the rest of the questions here, let's start with the Hacienda Banco. Whatever you can provide to ease investor concerns. And if we can combine that with the fully financed 25 million funding package, if you can let us know there how much of that remains and plans going forward on that.
Yes, certainly. So the Hacienda Banco was 12 million of the $25 million financing package. So we drew just about half of that available funding from the Hacienda Banco. Unfortunately, there was about $3 million of that funding that was still in the Hacienda Banco, in an account at the Hacienda Banco. So what happened with Hacienda is that they've been struggling. They're a small bank. They've been struggling with their liquidity ratios and falling underneath the allowable limits in Mexico over the past several months. So the regulators basically pulled the license on the bank, and it's not sure if it will be recapitalized or whether it's going into receiver. That is all being looked at now. So that effectively removes the Hacienda Banco funding that was left to be drawn down. So that is no longer available. And that would have been about $7 million left to draw down from the Hacienda Banco. Now that might seem like a big hole, but we are not overly worried about that because we currently have $6.5 million of funding available funding in our accounts. We have another $3 million that is no longer available, and that was in the Hacienda Banco. So, what we have left to spend to finish construction at the project is between $6 to $7 million. We are on track with the project. We're at at budget, and our time frame is good to have this thing up and running by the end of this year. So everything's on track there. We may not need to do additional funding. However, we're looking at ways to bring more money in. So there are several of them. We have, as I say, we have left to spend about $6 to $7 million. We have $6.5 million on hand. I have recently had unsolicited interest in private placements of up to $2 million. So we're very confident that if we choose to do so, we could complete a private placement in short order between the $5 and $10 million level. However, we don't really want to suffer that dilution. So we have also warrants that are in the money. So we'll be going and discussing with our major warrant holders the idea of exercising warrants to help bring a bit more money in should we need it. But the main source of to cover over the shortfall of the Ascendo Banco no longer being available is our cash flows from Campomorato. We've been doing very well there, making around $2 million on a monthly basis. So, you know, we could have at least $1 million or more available from that project to slide over to Tarawetto. And with the money on hand that we already have, that could complete the construction. Now, to give us a little bit of a cushion, we're investigating the possibility of getting a little bridge financing that we could access only if we need it. And the warrant situation could bring in new capital as well. So overall, we are not hugely concerned with the downfall of the Ascendo Banco. We believe that we are well on our way to realizing Tarawetto with the money on hand or a very small financing or a bridge financing. Okay, so I would just, with that explanation, just again ask for any questions.
Thank you, Ralph there. And if there are any other questions on that, please send them over to us. But in the meantime, I will be going and asking the questions in the order that they've been received prior to this webinar and during this webinar. Perhaps we might start with before the webinar. How about, have there been any discussions about tripling the size of the Tarawetto mine?
Well, that's one of our targets. Okay, so what would have to happen to double or triple the size of the mine? First, we get it into production, and then we start to drill, basically get the exploration drills turning again on the close-in targets to increase the resources, the M&I, measured and indicated resources, upgrade them to reserves, and continue to explore. Once we get to a critical mass on those new resources, reserves we would bring in, we could make a decision to expand the project. I would say that with 6 months of drilling, that we would have a pathway to do that. And with a year of exploration, you know, we could conceivably see a justification of expanding that mine 2 or 3 times its size. It will take exploration success, but hopefully I showed you why we believe that will come fairly easily.
And what would be the projected capital cost to get Campo to 5,000 tons per day?
Far too early to make an intelligent guess on that. In order to get to the 5,000 tons a day at Campo or to expand the size of Tarawetto, first we have to bring in the resources. Then we have to get the mine plan in place, know what it's going to cost to develop that mine plan, know what additional equipment we will need to upgrade to that size. So it's simply too early to give any good solid figures for that. If I was throwing numbers out, I wouldn't be able to really back them up. We need to get the exploration done, the engineering work done, and then we'll have a much better idea of what that cost would be. So, you know, for example, at Tarawetto, the expansions, this mill has been built modular, so we just require the additional equipment of ball mill, flotation cells, filters, etc. So I just don't have a good answer for you at this moment because there's a lot more work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I think that's a fair answer there, Ralph. Thank you for that. So let me start asking the questions that we've been receiving here during the presentation. Can you discuss how silver stream will impact revenue in the first few years of the Tarawetto mine?
So our silver stream is for 1,250,000 ounces. We're delivering 100% of the silver in the first, probably within the first 5 years. I think between 4 and 5 years, that will be delivered. And then the stream goes down to 20% of the silver. So we'd be delivering 20% of the silver for another 5 years. So after 10 years, it all disappears. So the silver is not a large paying commodity at the project. If you saw if you noticed the pie chart showing which commodities are paying, I think silver was around 12%. Gold is the highest paying commodity. So it doesn't seriously affect our cash flows. Obviously, if we're producing 400,000 ounces of silver annually, that's 400,000 ounces that's going out to deliver to the offtake or to the royalty holder in the first 3 years. Right, so we would be losing the revenue from 400,000 ounces of silver is what we estimate the silver production will be annually.
Great. These two questions, I'm going to ask them together. They are regarding M&A. So since Francillo owns land near you, is it possible they may buy you out or a JV site? Any comments on potential M&A?
Well, sure. I mean, there's always M&A possibilities out there. Now, as far as Fresnillo in their surrounding ground at Tarawetto, it's worth noting that Fresnillo has been interested in this project ever since we acquired it. However, as a big company dealing with a small junior, they never really wanted to make any serious offers to take the Tarawetto project and operate it themselves. So, there's a good chance that we could negotiate with Fresnillo in the future to bring their ground into ours. As far as a M&A transaction where Fresnillo would buy Tarawetto, I don't see that happening for several years, even if it would happen. We believe that Tarawetto is a standalone company-making project, and we don't envision selling Tarawetto to another group. Where we would see M&A transactions is our company wanting to grow and going out and looking for other projects within Mexico primarily, but South America or other parts of the world. Right now, we're really concentrating on Mexico because that's where our strength is. And there is lots of opportunity for M&A transactions in Mexico. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, and again, if anybody does have a question, please submit them to us, including any follow-up questions here. Yeah, let's go into talking a little bit about Mexico here. How is the tax situation in Mexico? Some people say terrible, others say quite good. So what is your opinion on that? And on that, let me add to that with a question that we received prior. Can you talk a bit about the safety there in Mexico and in the area that you mine?
Sure. Well, let's touch first on the taxes. So, I mean, taxes are always too high. It doesn't matter how much they are. But, in Mexico, we pay an effective tax rate of close to 40%. So there's the standard income tax from a company, but then there's a few royalty taxes as well. So it is quite high. It's 40%. Obviously we'd like to see it lower. However, all of our cash flow modeling incorporates the tax that is payable, and Tarawetto is a very robust project. So we don't see the tax rate is harming us. We can go forward with it as it is. Will it change in the future? Hopefully it'll go down. At this point in time, we have lots of room to absorb the tax that is currently being charged at the project. If we touch on security, Mexico it can be a complicated place. There's various states that are worse than other states, more challenging than other states. In fact, Guerrero has a reputation of being a tough state to work in, and it is a tough state to work in. We'll admit it. However, we've been working there for quite a period of time. We have a very good team in Mexico that knows how to operate in these areas. And the best way to operate in these areas is to be able to continue to meet your social license with the local communities. They become your partners in your operation, and that allows you to continue to produce. So we have a very good relationship with the local communities in Arcilla. And in Durango, Durango is a much more friendly jurisdiction than Guerrero or some of the southern states in Mexico. And we have never had any real issues at Tarawetto, even through the exploration and development. There's been no issues to hold us up on developing the project. And there's a different mentality between the residents of Durango as opposed to Guerrero, and they're much more friendly to industry, mining, etc. Having said that, I can assure you that Campomorato in the state of Guerrero, we have it well in hand. We have a very good relationship with the local community. Our social license is intact and is being improved all the time. And we don't see any issues that would slow us down or shut us down. And people know that in Guerrero, there are various times when mines do get shut down for, labor strife or what have you. I'm not saying that's not a possibility at Campomorato, but I think we've got it effectively handled, and it's a low to remote possibility at this point in time on our operation of Campomorato.
Thank you. And what is the process that you're testing for higher rates of recovery?
All right, so there's various processes in there the one initial part of that is pneumatic flotation. So pneumatic flotation is a proven technology that allows better recoveries at microfine grind. When I say microfine grind, to put that into context, at Campomorato, we're grinding in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 microns. You could grind down to that size. Microfine grind would take you down to 10 microns. That liberates a lot more metal. The grain size of the various metals or the ore at Campomorato, various minerals, is quite small. So the finer you grind, the more you're liberating. Trouble is when you get down to those fine grinds, the traditional mechanical flotation cells, as I mentioned, just don't do a good job of recovering. Those particles that small, they get a little slime built up on them, and because there's not enough energy to strip that slime off, they don't attach well to the reagents. So you end up sending quite a bit of your metal to the tailings disposal facility. So these pneumatic flotation cells, and there's several of them, there's at least 3 competing pneumatic flotation cells. That would be the Immelflat flotation of Maelgwyn Mineral Services out of the UK, the Glencore Jameson cell, and then there's the Woodgrove cell, a group out of Canada that have developed the Woodgrove cell. So we hope to test all of them on site. We have the Immelflat cell on site now, conducting testing. The Jameson cell is scheduled to come on site within the next month. And we're working in discussions with the Woodgrove to see whether we can test that technology as well. And the idea is that at microfine grind, pneumatic flotation will get you higher base metal recoveries, should allow us to make a pyrite concentrate, which has not been successful to date through the mechanical cells. If that's the case, that gives us a pathway to increase gold recoveries. And the final stage to that is to oxidize your tailings and run them through a leaching plant to recover the gold and silver that has been liberated through oxidation. So that's the testing that's gone through first phase with both leach ox process and Albion process. Leach ox process is Maelgwyn Mineral Services technology. Albion is Jameson cell technology. And both have been successful through first phase at Campomorato. So that's where we hope to take this. We hope to increase the precious metal recovery because the Campomorato has a lot of precious metals. In fact, if this technology works, we believe it will become a silver mine as opposed to a zinc mine. So we're really striving to get there. We'll be testing over the next 2 to 3 months. So towards the end of this year, we hope to have our pathway outlined, and then be able to start working on costing of the technology to bring it into the mine and change around the flotation and the leaching plant, etc. So towards the end of this year, we'll have a much better handle on our ability to do that.
We'll take one more question here, unless anyone else has questions to submit. But can you talk a little bit more about the capital cost to set up the tailings?
Well, once again, we don't have a good handle until we get through the testing and we know what size we're going to need. I do have a bit of an idea on the capital cost of the pneumatic flotation cells. They're generally about $1 million a piece, but one would likely take the place of about 10 to 15 traditional flotation cells. So maybe we would need 4 or 5 of those pneumatic flotation cells. So that's a capital cost that we can deal with. On the leaching side of things, that's a harder estimate to make at this point in time because we don't know yet how much material we would need to be oxidizing. And then the leach plant would be governed to the size of the amount of material we need to oxidize. So we're just not able to give you a good feel for that costing yet.
Yeah, I think that's all fair there, Ralph. And thanks again, everyone, for joining today's webinar. Today's webinar recording will soon be made available on the Altaley website. If you have any additional questions that have not been addressed on this webinar, please feel free to email us at altaley@rbmilestone.com. Again, that's altaley@rbmilestone.com. Thanks. You are now free to disconnect.
Thank you, everybody. Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.